Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch. And with me, as always, it's a show where two guys watched random movies thanks to the magic of streaming random buttons. And with me, as always, is the tramp stamp to my forehead tattoo, Kyle Mulford.
Are you damaged? We are not men who hate women, but we are men who love movies.
Yeah, so I forgot about this stupid Jared Leto Joker until you just said that. I hate
Now
you.
you shall never forget. uh, well, if nobody caught the reference from my intro, what did we watch this week?
We watched The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the original Swedish version.
And the original Swedish title translation is actually Men Who Hate Women.
Huh.
And that's a pretty prevalent theme in this film.
I'd say so.
This is a 2009 Swedish film. I think it was released in 2010 in the UK and USA and all that. Um,
Hmm.
uh, this is interesting. I was reading about some stuff that I did not know about this film at first. The film and the book. So it's directed by Nels Arden Oplev. I don't really know anything. I don't know a lot of Swedish films, and like a lot of the
Hmm.
actors and the director were all Swedish. So like we had Michael Nyqvist playing Mikael Blomkvist. I can't say these Swedish names.
The
Then
only
we had
thing I know is like Ingmar Bergman was from Sweden, so you know.
yeah, and then we had Numi Rapace playing Lisbeth Salander. Salander. One interesting note is the editor of this film was Anne Osterud, who just won best or who was the editor on the best international film winner Another Round this year.
Nice.
That was just something I saw in there. This movie is based on a novel written by Stig Larsson, and he wrote. Apparently, he had plans to write 10 novels in this Millennium series because one of the characters works for a magazine called Millennium, and he got two and a half of them written before he found a publisher, and then finally he got the third one written, and then he died in 2004, and his first book wasn't published until 2005, and he only had the first three written, and so they published those three, and and those were and this one was his first novel. So like his first novel was published after his death because he died of a heart attack at age 50 in
Yeah,
2004.
because he like went up 3 flights of stairs or something to his office.
Yeah, I read on there it's like he died of a heart attack after climbing stairs.
Poor guy.
I know, right? That sucks. That's not, that's not a that's not a way you want to go out. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like I didn't know that about this, that these books weren't even published till after the author's death. And all three movies, Swedish versions of the movies, were all released in 2009. I think they were all filmed at the same time over like a
Oh
year and a
yeah, kind of
half.
like a Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah. So
One big
um,
production.
Numi Rapace said that I was reading interviews that she read the books before there was even a movie or a script or anything. And she found out that this was going to be made into a movie. So she really wanted the part, and she said that she would do anything to get it. She went out and trained in kickboxing and all this stuff. And she wanted to get more of a boyish look because she didn't want to be like all prettied up and everything. And she got all those piercings that you see. She got all those piercings. She learned how to ride a motorcycle. She got her motorcycle license for this film. So like she went all out to get this role.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, you got a quick snowball pitch for this movie?
Yeah, a journalist and a hacker work together to solve a cold case on an island in Sweden.
There you go.
It is kind of formatted like an old locked room mystery, almost like I think another like a Murder on the Orient Express, where it's a limited amount of suspects, and also happens to be a snowy location.
I got
Except in this case, instead of just like a train, it's an island.
yeah, I gotta because of the rich family and one of them seems like they might be the suspect. I got a real Knives Out vibe from it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll say the one thing that confused me is so introducing the two characters. You've got Blomqvist.
Hmm.
I'll just call him Michael.
Mikey.
Hey, Mikey. Mikey likes it. uh,
Michelangelo's a party dude. That's all I know.
and then he is a guy who is just like at the beginning of the movie, you get him like losing a case of libel against like this millionaire or whatever because he wrote a story about him and then like he got sued for libel and lost. And so
Hmm.
he's got to go to jail for 3 years. And then here's where I didn't understand is there's this family, the Vanbergs or something like that,
Yeah.
and one of the elders in the family contacted or like had Numi Rapace, Lisbeth Salander, who was like a hacker, like look into this Michael guy and see what he's all about, and then hired him to find to find out who killed his missing niece or who killed his niece like back in 1966. And I was like, so this guy's supposed to go to jail, but like, oh, he can just say, "Hey, time out," because this rich family wants me to investigate something for them.
Yeah, I didn't understand that part either, but I do know that the reason that they went after him, not just because he's a journalist, but also because, that family business owns the magazine.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't really catch that watching the movie. I might have just missed it. But yeah, that I did read that afterwards. I was like, oh, that was a plot point I missed. Was that that family owned the
Yeah, this
magazine?
is very plot heavy, very pretty dense plot, and it just seems like there's a lot going on at all times.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically how we're introduced to both characters because she's a hacker who looks into him to see if he like is he really a bad journalist or what?
But she's not like other girls because she rides a motorcycle and she smokes and she has a cool tattoo and has piercings and stuff. And likes
Yeah,
computers.
and she's kind of a troubled kid.
Troubled youth.
You get like the idea like that she was probably abused by her father as a kid
Hmm.
and all that stuff. They don't do a whole lot other than one scene where you see her throwing a match into a car as a child and lighting a man on fire, and I think that was enough for me to go. That must have been her dad.
Hmm.
And then so she's like she was deemed mentally unfit or something and had to have guardians or whatever growing up, and so she's got a guardian
Hmm.
right now and he dies of a stroke or something like that, and so she
Yeah.
gets a new guardian who her laptop gets broken and she goes to him for money, and this guy like forces her to perform fellatio to get the money for a new
Yeah. So,
laptop.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, so a man who hates women.
I'm gonna call him Mr. Creepy.
He is Mr. Creepy.
Yes.
So then you get a scene. It's a disturbing scene, but I like how it was set up because she calls him the next day and asks for money again, and you think that she's going to go in and just do something to him for what he did.
Hmm.
Well, she's like, "No, I'm going to ask for more money and just assume that he's going to just make me do a blowjob again and I'll get it on tape." So like she hid a camera in her bag. Well, instead, he ties her to the bed and rapes her, which is
Yeah.
really uncomfortable to watch.
It's very hard to watch, and I fast forwarded through the scene.
Yeah, but that being done, he goes even so far that you're like, you're going to cheer her on no matter what she does to him
Hmm.
afterwards. Because then she comes back with the tape and says, "Oh, I'll send this to whatever." So, like, that's basically a way for her to get money and income and new computer and everything like that, is
Also, she
because,
like beats him up, and then all of a sudden,
yeah. And then she
and then
rapes
tattoos
him
on
with
him
a
that says like
dildo.
"I am a rapist pig" or whatever
Yeah, tattoos it like
on his
literally
chest, I
tattoos his
believe.
stomach with a tattoo gun. Yeah, I'm a sexist pig and a rapist, I think she wrote on his
Hmm.
stomach. Just sloppily on there, which is great. And then like I said, she rapes him with a dildo, and you're just like, yeah, kick his ass too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, then you know, Michael's investigating this 30-40 year old disappearance of a girl because and the only reason that the guy tried to hire someone is like apparently he would get a framed plant from his niece every year, and then after she disappeared he got one from around the world all over the place every year still, and he thought that it was like the killer taunting him, and so he hired someone to find out who killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And because after what 40 years they like couldn't figure it out still.
Yeah, and then this kind of turns into a bit, and this plot. So there's really kind of like the Mikey plot and then the Elizabeth plot, and then they do tend to more intersect towards the end and come together. Because a lot of the Mikey plot is just him sort of, it's a detective movie. He's going around talking to people, looking through old photos.
Yeah, and then I thought it was kind of cool I mean the how he pieced together
Yeah,
the
talking to the original guy who investigated the crime back then, trying to do here and there.
yeah, and then finding like, pictures of the last place she was at, and then he realizes that she's looking at something, and then he looks in one picture and says, oh, sees, oh, someone else was taking a picture from her side of the street, and he tracks that person down, and
Mm-hmm.
then he like, gets another picture from her about, it was kind of cool, like finding like finding all these connections and how they fit together, and it felt authentic the way they did this, and also the fact that like it didn't feel stupid that no one had
Mm-hmm.
figured this out before.
Yeah, and then also, Lisbeth is still she still has his computer hacked this whole time and is
Yeah,
almost watching him.
and she sees some clue in there that she realizes what it is, and oh, hey, you want cliches, it was Bible verses.
Mm-hmm.
you
It's
know
I
if
it
you
was I just assumed it was going to be Revelation because it's always Revelation in these
Yeah.
types of movies, but
So
it
if
was
you're ever doing a
Leviticus
murder investigation and numbers are involved, check the Bible.
just in case.
And then you get into the whole like man, not only is it men who hate women, it's Nazis murdering Jewish women. Just
Damn Nazis!
I hate the Nazis. We need to
Indiana
get
Jones was right.
we needed to get Indiana Jones in on this case to
Mm-hmm.
punch him out. And yeah, that like you find out like this family has like a history of, being in the Nazi party and all this stuff, and they're figuring it out, and finally figure out like oh, this family's rich, so they're gonna write off like, trips to like different countries, all this stuff. So they find unexplained murders that kind of correspond with these Bible passages, and realize, oh, one of the family members was in these towns at the time of the murder for all of these.
Yeah, and at this point, that's kind of when Elizabeth and
Mikey.
Mikey actually come together and team up officially. Then they're going from town to town, doing the detective work.
And then they fall in love.
Yeah, that plot point, I guess, never really made sense with me because I know she's supposed to be, I looked it up and she's supposed to be like 24, 25, but still, he's like 20 years older.
Yeah, it didn't feel natural. That didn't feel like there was any chemistry. That I agree with you. That was one of the points where I was like, did this have to happen?
Is
Like,
this like a self insert moment from the author?
uh, yeah, I don't know,
Mm
because it just seemed really forced in there.
hmm. Mm hmm.
So I don't know if it's like her taking control because this is about like men abusing women, and then Lisbeth is one of those that's going to fight back,
Mm hmm.
and not take that shit. She never acts like a victim.
Mm
Like
hmm.
she takes control, and like even when she was forced to perform fellatio, she's like, you know what? I'll go through that again just to blackmail this dude.
Yeah.
And
And then, some of that is like, it almost feels like kind of like it's trying to be edgy
yeah,
in like a not like other girls sort of way.
yeah. I don't know. I liked the character, so
I think she's a good character, but also I think some of it is like also maybe because it was written by a middle-aged man.
Yeah, but yeah, so I agree the relationship didn't work for me, but the rest of the stuff that like the the whole figuring out. I like a good mystery movie too,
Hmm.
and thriller mystery where this is like, oh, it could be any one of these family members that I'm working with,
Hmm.
and then you get to a point where like he thinks it's this guy because all of them are Nazis, and but no, it was this guy all along, and oh, and then he gets caught, and then Lisbeth has to come and save him from dying.
Yeah. So at one point, he gets caught by the killer who ends up being like Oh, those murders weren't me. They were my dad. This is like a family thing.
My dad taught me how to rape women.
Mhm.
But you found me because he liked to leave his out on display. I just raped them and then got rid of the bodies so that no one would know that they were raped.
Put them in the ocean on my big old boat.
Yeah, so like
And
just
in the American version of this, during that whole scene where he's kind of like explaining his what he does, how he's finding like he's definitely getting ready to kill Mikey. First of all, that was Bill's. No, Stellan Skarsgård was ended up being the killer in the American version. He does a great job. Because I
oh,
saw the American version in theaters. Then also one scene I never forgot was during this torture scene where he was getting ready to kill Mikey was they played the song Orinoco Flow by Enya, and I was
right.
kind of disappointed that this wasn't in the Swedish version as well.
uh yeah, I there was a kind of a good ending, they she comes and saves him, and then there's the whole thing where he goes to jail finally for the libel, but then he gets sent information and you find out it was from Lisbeth. They're like, oh, here's some information on that guy who sued you for libel, and this is actually good information on how bad he is. And so he writes another story and kind of gets his name cleared from that.
Hmm.
And then the millionaire that he writes about mysteriously dies and his bank account gets wiped out, and they see footage of a security camera, and Michael realizes, oh, that's Lisbeth in a blonde
Hmm.
wig. And then she walks away, never to be seen again until
Until
later
the
until
sequel.
later that year when the next movie came out.
Hmm.
I had seen this film before. I like this one. I haven't seen the sequels.
I'd only seen the American version, and that one didn't do well enough to get a sequel.
No, I think they've done one or two movies off of other books written in the series by a different author.
Hmm.
But yeah, American wise, they didn't finish the two that Stieg Larsson had actually written. But yeah, they did do all three of them for the Swedish versions. And so this one got an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes and 87% from users. And I think actually, even though the American version didn't do as well, it
Hmm.
had pretty much the same ratings on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
But I looked at the sequels, and both of them were like more with like critics more in like the 60% range.
Hmm.
So, but I would be interested in watching the next two just because I liked Numi Rapace in this, and I liked the character.
Yeah.
So, so I think it would be good to go and watch the sequels, at least check them out once. So I don't know. I think we can go into like overall thoughts on the movie and whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, I liked it, and it definitely had felt like David Fincher. Felt like kind of reminded me of like something like Seven, which makes sense because David Fincher directed the American version.
Yeah, and it's one of the very few David Fincher films that I haven't seen.
Hmm.
Um, I liked this. Again, I feel like the beginning didn't make sense with how the characters came together and how they were used and how they ended up on this story. But like once they,
Hmm.
it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but it worked well enough to just get the story going. And then once the mystery and thriller started, then I was really into this.
And
And
I think some of that context might be lost in translation. And also, some of it was probably more context in the book.
I was reading like differences between the books and the movies, and it sounds like there was actually quite a few differences. So like
Hmm.
I think there's a lot more detail in the book of a lot of stuff. But yeah, but so other than the beginning, and then like we talked about the romance that seemed kind of forced. I liked both characters. I did like their partnership relationship. That there was good
Hmm.
chemistry there, but like the sexual chemistry and like romantic chemistry wasn't there for me. That just was like, okay, they're having sex.
And the
What?
fact that she saves his life twice.
Yeah, he's and she figured out most of this a lot of stuff. No, he did a lot with the pictures, so I guess.
But she
But
did
she
the hard
was,
work.
but she did do. She is the one who came up with the Bible verses. So like they worked well together. Like they both brought something to the case. So an interesting fact: Numi Rapace's mother, real life mother, actually plays her mother in the film.
Huh.
I thought that was kind of cool. Um,
Neat.
I I was listening to another podcast and I just had to I had to bring this in. They talked about like how specific keywords get when searching for movies on IMDb. And so I looked at the keywords for this movie and I had to like write down a few that like were like, okay, that's an interesting keyword and actually had multiple movies if you clicked on it. One was raped with a dildo.
Ha!
Another one is taught how to murder by one's father. and and then speaking of the other one that I mentioned with Numi Rapace is a keyword for this movie is real life mother and daughter play mother and daughter. Just
I do enjoy some of the bizarre IMDb keywords.
yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny. So I've floated through there. There was a lot of good ones in there. Some of them though were really specific, but then you clicked on it, it's like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was the only movie on the list. I'm like, why is this even a keyword then if it's you don't have other movies that have this keyword?
Nice.
uh, so recommend?
Oh yeah, definitely recommend. And now we move on to at least probably one of my favorite segments, double feature, where we talk about what we would pair this film with if it's good, or what you should watch instead if it's bad. This one is good. So for me, I said mentioned David Fincher earlier, so I'm going to go with this one. Would pair well with the David Fincher film Zodiac, which is I think probably my favorite David Fincher movie because something about it was just kind of creepy, and also the fact that it was a real life case and these kind of different groups of people investigating the real life Zodiac killer in California.
Yeah, that is a good movie, and it's got a very yeah, I agree, very similar vibe. It really is like this was a good one for Fincher to remake, and although remaking a pretty good foreign film like 3 years after the original was made, I mean, typical Hollywood. I don't think
Mhm.
it needed to be done, and
Yeah, because this film, even back then, this film was pretty accessible.
yeah, because before I think I saw the Swedish version before the American version was even going to be made because I think I saw it like maybe a year after it came out.
Hmm.
Well, so the other one must have been probably in production when I saw this. But
Maybe.
yeah, I saw it pretty early. So it really was accessible. But my recommendation is I'm going to go with one that I talked about on What You Watching that I recently watched. So on it'll actually be the What You Watching that I posted before this episode. This movie was about men who hate women. Well, the movie I'm going to recommend to like watch after this is a woman going to get revenge on all those men who hate women. And that's Promising Young Woman.
Nice.
After seeing this and talking about seeing a rape scene and then like finding out this family of like a father and son who raped a bunch of women and killed a bunch of women. I think you should wash that out with a movie about a woman going to get revenge on rapists.
Written and directed by a woman.
Yes, written and directed by a woman who when I was watching the Oscars, they were talking about how like they filmed Promising Young Woman in like 23 days, and the director was like 7 months pregnant when she made this film.
Hmm.
I you know I, and good on her. It's a good film. So I think this would be a good follow up, just to just be like, okay, you got all those men hating women. Now let's get a woman getting revenge on those men hating women
Hmm.
or those women hating men.
And then now we move on to our final segment, which is where we get to figure out what in the world we're supposed to watch next time.
I think all genres has been good to us. We've been getting lucky, knock on wood.
We have been getting very lucky.
So, if we end up with a garbage movie, we had a good run. 70% or better and spin. Oh, okay. I can already tell you this is going to be a fun one to talk about.
I'm here for it.
All right. As bass guitarist for a garage rock band, I'm not even going to say his name, has never had trouble getting a girlfriend. Usually the problem is getting rid of them, but when girl skates into his heart, he finds she has the most troublesome baggage of all, an army of ex-boyfriends who will stop at nothing to eliminate him from her list of suitors.
Is this about a guy named Scott and his
It,
pilgrim and the
it,
world?
it might be.
10th
Uh,
anniversary.
what's that?
It's the 10th anniversary this year.
Last
Oh,
year, because it says it came
last
out in
year's. Well, yeah.
2010. And I've actually watched this one recently, and boy, does it hold up. It's uh, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and this is streaming from 2010. Edgar Wright film. This is streaming on Netflix.
I watched this. I got some nerd cred on this one. I watched this one at the midnight premiere with two of my best buddies.
Nice. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this and all of the Marvel superheroes that are in it.
Hmm.
Actually, Marvel and DC.
Yeah. Anyway, I got to pee.
All right, we can let people know we're on Twitter at AwesomeKM.
I'm at Noah_Saturn SATERN.
We're on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch, and you can email us, we don't know what to watch at gmail.com. Like our video, comment below, tell us you like us, tell us you hate us, tell us something.
Hmm.
And until next time, you know what? Don't be doing bad things to women, or I'll send Lisbeth Salander at you.
Yeah. And bread makes you fat? Chicken Parmesan's not vegan?